When it comes to Disney, there are many iconic characters from different movies that are famous and popular across the globe. The most famous one is obviously Mickey Mouse and some of his pals like Minnie and Donald. There are Disney princesses such as Snow White, Ariel, Anna and Elsa. Others include Stitch, Buzz Lightyear, Marvel superheroes, and more. In the Asian Disney parks, there are some fluffy animals that aren't well known around the world. Duffy and Friends. And while they have built a huge fan base among these parks, I honestly don't like these characters. Making his debut as an innocent companion to the iconic mouse at first, Duffy has become a franchise of its own and has taken over different aspects of Hong Kong Disneyland. Recently, the Duffy-themed springtime event, Duffy and Friends Play Days, returned to this park. However, there are a number of reasons why I am not on board with them bringing this back. So today, I am going to discuss the history of Duffy and Friends, specifically in Hong Kong Disneyland, and what makes me suddenly hate them when most people don't. Before we begin, please remember to like the video and subscribe to this channel. The origin of Duffy goes all the way back to a shopping area at Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida. A new shop called Once Upon a Toy opened in 2002 at the downtown Disney shopping area, now known as Disney Springs. A toy named the Disney Bear was used to promote the opening of the toy shop. The unnamed bear had a Mickey silhouetted face, Mickey feet, and Mickey mark on its left tip. Sales numbers for the toy were low at the time, and the product was discontinued shortly. In 2005, the teddy bear was brought to Tokyo Disney Resort. The Oriental Land Company, owner and operator of Tokyo Disney, alongside Walt Disney Imagineering, decided to make the bear an official character. And so, Duffy the Disney Bear was born. Dubbed as the Bear of Happiness and Luck, Duffy is Mickey Mouse's very own teddy bear. Minnie made Duffy to keep Mickey company as he sails through the seas. The bear was extremely popular at the time, and merchandise were often sold out at the designated shop and Pax's Village store. Duffy was given an area dedicated within American Waterfront and Tokyo Disney Sea, where guests could take photos with their teddy bears. His origin story was further discovered in a show at Cape Cod Cook-Off in 2010 called My Friend Duffy. The show features an original story where Minnie Mouse sold a teddy bear for Mickey to bring along as he sailed through the seas alone. Minnie showed Mickey the bear she made in a duffel bag, which is how Mickey came up with his name. Mickey and Duffy traveled to many places together and made a lot of new friends. The Disney Bear was a huge success in Tokyo and led to international Disney fans' attention. His success led to other characters joining his lineup of friends, including Shelly May, Gelatoni, Stellalou, Cookie Ann, Olumel, and Lilabelle. Of course, Duffy and Friends have many different appearances throughout Disney parks, but for the sake of this video, we are going to focus on how Hong Kong Disneyland handles Duffy and Friends. Duffy made his debut at Hong Kong Disneyland during Christmas in 2010. The backstory for Duffy here was simple and similar to Tokyo. Minnie Mouse sold a teddy bear for Mickey as a Christmas gift. Later, he started to appear wearing seasonal outfits in different events alongside Mickey and friends, from Chinese New Year to Halloween and Christmas. Duffy met guests on Main Street and had a stable amount of merchandise sold within the shops. In 2014, Shelley Mae joined Mickey and Duffy during these events. Their popularity started to grow, and in 2016, the same year when Gelatoni debuted in Tokyo, he was immediately brought to Hong Kong Disneyland. Gelatoni's debut also led to the opening of a new Duffy shop and meet and greet at the Main Street Cinema, known as My Journeys with Duffy. In 2017, Stellalou started appearing and was also popular. In 2018, for the first time, a new friend of Duffy debuted outside of Tokyo and in this park.
Gathering here today to welcome our newest Disney friend, and her name is Cookie!
Her name was Cookie, later renamed Cookie Ann. Cookie Ann was considered quite a success as fans from Tokyo and around the world would literally travel to Hong Kong just to meet the character, which was exclusive to this park at the time. As a result, Duffy and Friends has become a staple alongside Mickey and Friends in Hong Kong Disneyland. In 2018, Olu Mel only made his debut as merchandise in Aulani. It wasn't until 2020 when he started appearing as a meetable character in both Shanghai Disneyland and Hong Kong Disneyland. Shanghai Disneyland is also the first Disney park in the world to feature Lina Bell in 2021. Much like Cookie Ann in Hong Kong Disneyland, Lina Bell was met with huge popularity when she was exclusive to Shanghai Disneyland at the time. In September 2022, Lina Bell debuted in Hong Kong Disneyland, and the character seems to remain the most popular member of Duffy and Friends to this day. In Hong Kong Disneyland, I can't help but notice one thing I want to mention here, which will be relevant to the other parts of the video. That thing is, unlike Tokyo Disney Resort, Hong Kong Disneyland has never given Duffy and Friends any character dialogue in any of the shows they appear. As time goes by, here's where things started to go off the rails. Before the coronavirus, these characters used to appear alongside Mickey and Friends, assuming they are part of the same character lineup. However, with more characters added to Duffy and Friends started to appear separately from Mickey, much of a departure from Duffy's original roots. In 2021, a Xmas Cavalcade themed strictly to Duffy and Friends debuted as the park's new Christmas offering that year. The cavalcade was called A Holiday Gift of Cheer with Duffy and Friends, and only lasted for 1 year. Foreshadowing what was yet to come, the lack of Mickey and Friends in this case was rather more upsettable since the park was still operating under many COVID-19 restrictions. Also, it has been a long time since a Christmas parade or cavalcade was presented in this park. For your information, the last time Hong Kong Disneyland had a Christmas parade was Santa Mickey's Toy-rific Street Party in 2012. Sometime after Lina Bell's debut in 2022, a new concept known as Duffy Fanstasy was introduced by HKDL, recognizing Duffy and Friends as an official franchise on its own. Their share of appearances in seasonal events began to increase, with them being one of the main spotlights during Halloween. Lina Bell is extremely popular when she made her debut at Shanghai Disneyland first, so Lina Bell taking the Halloween spotlight after her arrival in HKDL made sense. On a positive note, this means Duffy alone can generate a lot of merchandise sales and stabilize revenue and profits for a park that has always struggled financially. As a result, when the next seasonal event arrived, Hong Kong Disneyland started to be greedy and prioritized Duffy over other characters. In 2022's Christmas event, Duffy and Friends took over Fantasyland's meet and greet area, Fantasy Gardens, transforming it to Duffy and Friends Winter Wonderland. This garden is usually the only place to meet Winnie the Pooh and his friends, as well as Mickey and Friends and some other weird characters occasionally. During the event, only Duffy and Friends appeared in 2 gazebos, with much of the space wasted on decorations and photo points for Duffy dolls. Understandably, photo spots are usual for Duffy since their debut in Tokyo Disney Sea, but that theme park was way bigger in size. For a small park like Hong Kong Disneyland, I expect spaces to be utilized at their fullest. However, these photo points looked like straightly themed to Duffy and would not be fun unless you have purchased a Duffy plush to place there. All in all, in my opinion, the Winter Wonderland felt like an underwhelming use of space and led to a reduction in the number of meetable characters. I used the word reduction because Duffy and Friends were already regular characters before this winter overlay was introduced. So this Winter Wonderland actually brought us no new or rare characters, but instead removed some of the existing characters, most notably Winnie the Pooh and his friends. When I wanted to meet these characters, I was told by cast members that they were hibernating and won't be back until the Winter Wonderland ends. For fans of Winnie the Pooh, this was pretty upsetting. To be fair, meet and greet with Winnie the Pooh and friends were also unavailable during previous seasonal overlays of Fantasy Gardens. The previous incarnation, Fantasy Gardens Wintertime Market, was also underwhelming because of this reason. However, it still made sense to feature Mickey and Friends as they occasionally meet at this point most of the time. Also, the outfits they used to wear here were different from their Main Street USA appearances. The Frozen 2 version of Fantasy Gardens featured Anna and Elsa, as well as Olaf, which were not commonly meetable at the park that time. The 15th anniversary overlay of the Fantasy Gardens also didn't feature Winnie the Pooh. Understandably, the park was operating under COVID-19 restrictions, so the number of characters would probably be affected by that. It is worth noting that Duffy and Friends have occasionally met in this garden alongside Mickey and Friends during the 15th anniversary. The relocation was not a problem at the time, as the My Journeys with Duffy room on Main Street was closed due to social distancing. However, this meet and greet has reopened after the 15th anniversary event ended, and again in April 2022 when the park reopened. With Main Street USA being the usual location for Duffy and Friends to meet guests, it just didn't feel right to place them in Fantasyland instead. Supposedly, this should only run throughout the Christmas event, but what made it worse was that Hong Kong Disneyland decided to extend the overlay until February in 2023, overlapping Chinese New Year. Moving on, 2023 marks the year of the rabbit according to the Chinese zodiac. Normally, a character representing the zodiac of the corresponding year would be featured in the Chinese New Year celebrations of Disney parks. Disney has a lot of classic characters who are rabbits to choose from, such as Judy Hopps from Zootopia, the White Rabbit from Alice in Wonderland, Rabbit from Winnie the Pooh, Thumper from Bambi, and the most relevant one for the year of Disney 100, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Sadly, HKDL decided to limit the event to just Stellalou, making it the second Duffy and Friends event in a row. I understand that Stellalou is a rabbit, but she was not a new character like Ninabelle. Duffy and Friends may be popular, but I was upset that other characters were not included in this event. It was such a missed opportunity, especially during the year of Disney 100. In my opinion, they should have just featured all the rabbits together to celebrate Chinese New Year. Eventually, some of the rabbits I've mentioned did appear, but they were not widely promoted and were considered magical moments only fans that regularly visit the park could randomly discover. Speaking of rare characters and magical moments, 2023 was the year of Disney's 100th anniversary. Therefore, I expect more characters to appear in this park as part of the centennial celebration around the world. In Hong Kong Disneyland, World of Frozen and the Walt Disney statue known as Stream Makers opened as part of the celebration. However, there was not a major event held that was directly related to Disney 100, and not too many rare characters appeared during the year. This was highly due to the disappointing springtime event introduced that year. In fact, this was the first year since COVID where Hong Kong Disneyland's springtime event was not affected by COVID closures. Previously, HKDL used to hold springtime carnivals that include not just Mickey and Duffy, but also rare characters like Mary Poppins. In order to maintain fans' expectations, an event with similar amount of characters should have been featured, right?
好啦，考完步 ，Duffy and Friends 再嚟。
Well, that was fun. Maybe we can try again in another 100 years.
Unfortunately, no. Instead, Hong Kong Disneyland introduced a new springtime event called Duffy and Friends Play Days, the third seasonal event based on Duffy and Friends since Christmas 2022. The event was straightly themed to all 7 members of the franchise, with no new, rare, or classic characters from other IPs joining them. At this point, I was really tired with Duffy and Friends, given how much they took over the spotlight of many seasonal events. Originally, I thought the event would have been interesting as long as Mickey was involved. He was in Duffy's origin story after all. However, when the most controversial part of the event was revealed, I decided to finally quit Duffy and Friends.
用你哋最熱烈嘅歡呼聲同埋掌聲，邀請 Eden 同埋 Ian。
For the first time in Hong Kong Disneyland history, the iconic Mickey Floral at the entrance was replaced by another character, and that character was Duffy. Much to my disgrace and many other fans, not only does the floral look out of place compared to the rest of Main Street and the entrance's surroundings, but this also led to guests entering the Disney park being welcomed by a non-classic character that not everyone knows and loves. This drastically ruins Hong Kong Disneyland because an important Disney character was not present at the entrance to define guests' experience. The absence of Mickey and other classics continued to be felt as people entered Main Street USA, with shops being completely filled with just Duffy merchandise. Before the event, the Duffy merch was only in the Main Street Cinema, where my Journeys with Duffy meet and greet was. The fact these merch expanded through all shops on Main Street only worsened the fatigue I had on them. The Main Street market was also filled with just Duffy-related food, such as the Ninabelle waffles, with literally no Mickey waffles sold at the time. Because of the event, Hong Kong Disneyland has completely lost its usual magic and fantasy at the time. So what's the problem with the absence of Mickey? And why would I treat it as a big deal? Generally, any random person would know Mickey Mouse, as he is the main mascot of Disney. Mickey's debut in 1928's Steamboat Willie pioneered animation back in the early days. Without Mickey beginning the animation era, we would not see the first full-length animated film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Without Mickey, we will not get inspiring stories like Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, Toy Story, Up, Frozen and Encanto, etc. And without these movies led by Mickey, there wouldn't be the first Disneyland opening in 1955. And this is why Mickey's appearances cannot be ignored. When guests enter a Magic Kingdom style park, which is the first and maybe even the only part of the resort a typical guest would visit during a Disney vacation, the first thing they will go through is the entrance, and these Disney park entrances always come with a floral with flowers forming the face of the iconic mouse himself. Alongside the different Disney movies present on Main Street USA, the Mickey floral sets up guests' first impression on what to expect in a Disney theme park. Well-themed and immersive areas related to Disney classics. The change in Hong Kong Disneyland is considered negative, as it ruins guests' first impression on what to expect in this park. Instead of Disney classics, guests were stuck with a character they may not even know. That is because Duffy doesn't have a movie released in worldwide theaters, or a series broadcast on television or streaming. Just log on to Disney Plus and see if there is anything Duffy related to watch. No, nothing. Instead of Duffy and Friends, guests visit Disneyland expecting many Disney movies, classic Disney, Pixar, and Marvel, etc. But if their first impression is different from what they expect, they will be disappointed, and disappointment means they will less likely return, harming the park's future financial performance. And by guests, this includes annual pass holders, aka Magic Access members. Hong Kong Disneyland is one of the least visited Disney theme parks in the world, and its attendance partly counts on annual pass holders returning regularly to maintain the numbers. This is especially true during the COVID era, as borders were closed and Hong Kong Disneyland's attendance could only count on locals. Over the years, the park gave us many classic Disney stories, with the most obvious addition being the critically acclaimed, momentous Nighttime Spectacular. It not only gives us a wide variety of characters and stories, but also a cohesive theming in different stages of life, as well as a strong message of cherishing the memories made with family and friends. This aligns with many Disney movies that are met with unanimous praise thanks to their inspiration and moral values. Momentous remains a roaring success to this day, as many people keep coming back watching the fireworks show over and over. With this example shows the importance of long-term benefits. Hong Kong Disneyland should not just look into the short term to attract visitors. Unfortunately, whatever they do with Duffy and Friends seems to show that they don't care about the long run. Apart from the Duffy Floral and the Duffy Topiary, which oddly reminds me of the Flower Festival at Epcot, the Duffy and Friends Play Days event features a new attraction called Duffy and Friends Playhouse. Located in the Plaza grounds next to Plaza Inn, the venue was originally meant for temporary walkthroughs and character locations. Now, this playhouse has remained a permanent offering and serves as a designated meet and greet area for Duffy and Friends. A designated meet and greet area seems fine, cause this means Duffy and Friends can have a place for themselves without having to take over others' locations. However, the problem with this playhouse is how cheaply and quickly thrown together it is. Even though it was meant to be temporary, I just don't like this house because it does not have a proper roof in it. It really affects the theming and immersion, and while there may be a few rooms to explore, These rooms only feature significantly fewer interactive elements compared to Mickey and Friends' house in Toontown. From my personal experience, water may even leak occasionally from the building's ceilings on rainy days. As a new attraction and the event's major highlight, this is so vulnerable and has ruined fans' satisfaction. Although this event might be a financial success based on Duffy and Friends' popularity, I personally really don't like this event since it was first introduced in 2023. The only part of the event that was considered a hit was the Stellalou's Wonderful Wishes Ballet, which we'll get to that later. Thankfully, the Duffy takeover did not last long, as Marvel characters shared the spotlight during the second half of the springtime, and eventually, Floral Mickey returned to the park entrance in June, with the spotlight shifting back to Mickey and other characters during summer. After the event ended, Hong Kong Disneyland still held small shows known as Friendversaries, celebrating the date of each friend of Duffy arriving in this park. It was not a big problem until we reached Duffy and Shirley Mays' Friendversary, which is very close to Mickey and Minnie's birthday. The iconic mouse duo reached 95 years old in 2023, so a relatively bigger celebration was expected. However, Hong Kong Disneyland decided to heavily promote Duffy and Shirley Mays' Friendversary over Mickey's birthday until 1 week before the Mouse's big day arrived. And even then, Mickey's birthday moment was only held for 1 day with very low efforts, while unfairly, Duffy and Shirley May had a show running for an entire week. The same mistake continued to 2024 as Hong Kong Disneyland ditched Mickey's birthday again for Duffy's Friendversary. On the other hand, Duffy and Friends Winter Wonderland, in which I have previously mentioned, took over Fantasy Gardens for a second year. I found this rather unnecessary, considering that they already have a permanent greeting location at the Playhouse, debuted in spring. Even though their outfits in two locations were different, it still bothered me when they took over Winnie the Pooh's spot once again. And unlike usual Duffy offerings, which normally last for a limited time, in 2023, this Winter Wonderland has caused a permanent damage. Fantasy Gardens is an opening day attraction at Hong Kong Disneyland, where you can meet and greet with Disney friends. One of the gazebos, the Pagoda Gazebo, was where you can meet Mulan and friends.
Hong Kong Disneyland Mulan even speaks Chinese.
The gazebo was painted with red and orange with a few references to Mulan's sidekicks and backgrounds as seen in the film. However, during a refurbishment that finished by the time Christmas arrived, the Mulan Gazebo was repainted to blue and purple, with all themes to Mulan removed. Not only has it become a generic gazebo, but the color palette looks similar to the theming of Duffy and Friends Winter Wonderland. Although the change in color was never confirmed to be related to Duffy, the resemblance and coincidence sort of gave me the feeling that it was. If that is the case, the outrageous change has once again shown how Duffy and Friends unfavorably took over Disney classics in this park. It is also worth noting that during the year while Duffy and Friends have received new outfits during springtime and Christmas, Mickey and Friends only had their old outfits to meet at those times, increasing the disappointment.
Bah, humbug.
Fortunately, 2024 gave us something better. A new castle stage show, Mickey's Year of the Dragon celebration, launched during Chinese New Year. The show was praised for featuring rare characters from Walt Disney Animation Studios. Other than Mushu from Mulan, the show marked the debut for Raya and the Last Dragon in this park. Aside from the show, both Mickey and Friends and Duffy and Friends have received new outfits. The Chinese New Year event in 2024 gave fans more confidence on the park's future, as Hong Kong Disneyland seems to be finally showing more care on Mickey and Friends as well as other Disney classics. That is until the moment when Hong Kong Disneyland announced the all-seasonal events running that year, and Duffy and Friends Play Days was confirmed to be held for a second time. Before it was revealed, the park remained silent on whether the controversial Duffy Floral would return, possibly to avoid potential backlash similar to its first year. Despite that, the park still brought back the Duffy Floral, much to my disappointment. Duffy and Friends once again took over Hong Kong Disneyland throughout this event, with 2 shows and a soft opening day cavalcade removing all the other characters for Duffy. With that, Hong Kong Disneyland has once again reached a low point at the time. In order to further strengthen my argument, let's talk about the Duffy and Friends The Joy of Sharing show, which was considered the main highlight. With the regular Follow Your Dreams Castle stage show noticeably not having a reopening date after Christmas, fans have speculated how the stage will be utilized throughout the year. To be fair, Mickey and Friends took over the castle in Chinese New Year, so it's actually okay to let Duffy and Friends take over the stage during springtime.
One lovely spring day, some very good friends decided to meet in the park for a fun springtime picnic. Duffy!
The show was about Duffy and Friends going on a picnic. A big sorry in advance to all the participating performers in this show, but if I have to be really honest with you, the show was really boring. Although there may be a few morals about friendship and sharing, the story was just too simple and written in a very minimal effort. The most boring part is that the characters, like they have been since day one, had completely no dialogue throughout the entire show.
Duffy has realized that the picnic is about to come to an end.
No offense to the performers, but the narration throughout the show made it feel so child-oriented, just simply aimed at kindergarten or preschool kids. The same goes for the story, as all they did was saving a flower with water, posing for photos,
Do this. You go, and I go. Yes, that's it. You all look great.
and drawing a picture to cheer up Duffy.
It's a painting made by all the friends together.
Disney parks, like the movies, should be universally appealing to all ages. Some guests can go on kiddo rides, and some can go on thrill rides like roller coasters. If you target your product at just kids, you will lose the opportunity to attract more customers. Take the Legoland as example. Legoland is a family-friendly amusement park themed to Lego, where rides are targeted to just kids. For the last time I visited a Legoland, I have already grown up. Because of that, I can't help but notice things being a little too kid-friendly, and that the park is just not for me anymore, compared to me experiencing it as a kid. Back to Disney, or should I call it Duffyland. Adults like me were probably bored with this show, and thought this theme park was just for kids. Sure, there may be other things to do in the park, but you have to remember this is the castle stage. When everyone enters the park, they will easily see whatever is showing on stage. Having a show like this one in front of the gorgeous Castle of Magical Dreams honestly feels really distracting. The bad reputation would once again harm the park in the long run, as people are less likely to return. Other than the Joy of Sharing show, there was also Cookie Ann's sharing a sweet surprise moment on Main Street, USA. Being yet another Duffy entertainment, this was a small and honestly forgettable moment where Cookie Ann and a random Duffy and Friends member greeted guests for a few minutes. Since this was not a major highlight of the event, I will not go through it in detail, but at this point, it is safe to say that I strongly dislike most of what Duffy and Friends Play Days has to offer once again. Most of it.
We're always up for another song. Let's go.
Now I know what you're thinking. What about the Stellalou's Wonderful Wishes Ballet? Noticeably, I saved it for the last, because the good news is, I actually like the show. This might be ironic since the video is mostly about me complaining Duffy and Friends and now I'm praising them. But the truth is that I tried my best to be fair to everyone. And even this was yet another example of Duffy taking over Mickey, this time in the storybook theater in Fantasyland. The quality of this show actually stood out from anything else. Stellalou's Wonderful Wishes Ballet tells the origin story for Stellalou on how she achieves her ballet dreams of performing in a Broadway show. In collaboration with the Hong Kong ballet team, the show was mostly about the ballet dancers performing their dance moves on stage while playing roles of Stellalou and her co-dancers. Going through various stages including auditioning, traveling, and finally performing on stage, this show perfectly captured how dreamers who wish to perform live their life to pursue their lifelong goals. Whether it is a dancer or a singer, the show teaches us these dreamers deserve more recognition and encouragement than we could imagine. Although I am not a fan of Duffy and Friends, the show in general still indicates a strong message, and is even relevant as it shows going to university may not be the only way for one to achieve success. This very inspiring story has become my favorite part of all things Duffy, and the only part I like about this event. Unfortunately, this show was never considered the main highlight of the event as it ran for a shorter period. In 2023, the show only ran for a couple days close to Easter, while in 2024, it lasted for a month, but still just approximately 1/3 of the event. So guests were still stuck with the more unfavorable Duffy offerings during most of spring. Luckily, a Marvel drone show was then introduced, providing a second nighttime show and a much needed new spotlight to the park. Other than that, the fan favorite Magic Assets Summer Party returned as the Platinum Celebration Gala. Limited to Platinum Annual Pass holders, the MA event was considered a loving nostalgia service featuring many rare characters and a spectacular show. But since there were too many things to talk about, I'm saving it for another day. There was also the 90th birthday celebration for Donald Duck, what was also too long to cover in this video. To conclude 2024 springtime, while Duffy still took over the park, Hong Kong Disneyland did cater the needs for non-Duffy fans by featuring different characters throughout spring. Therefore, despite my continued complaints on the Duffy Floral, I was not as tired with Duffy and Friends as before. After Duffy and Friends Play Days ended, Floral Mickey and Follow Your Dreams returned. There is not much else to say about the summer event in 2024, as it stayed nearly the same as 2023. Moving on to Halloween, a welcoming update was made as Mickey and Friends and Duffy and Friends both received new Halloween outfits. Then, as mentioned previously, Hong Kong Disneyland once again ignored Mickey and Minnie's birthday over Duffy and Shelly Mace's Friendversary. This was Mickey and Minnie's 96th birthday, which was supposed to be a smaller one than 95th. However, I still bring this up because it happened for a second year in a row. Also, at the same time, Shanghai Disneyland featured birthday outfits for Mickey and Minnie for their 96th birthday. Not only are those beautiful outfits, but it clearly shows that Shanghai Disney Resort cares more about these classic characters than Hong Kong Disneyland does. Of course, you may argue what was then featured in 2024's Christmas event. This year, Duffy and Friends Winter Wonderland did not return, and was replaced by Yale Christmas Market. In this market, Mickey and Friends returned to Fantasy Gardens, once again meeting with an alternative outfit compared to Main Street. Despite them still not getting new outfits when Duffy and Friends did, I'm just glad to see them back here again. The decorations were also based on Mickey and Friends, which fit perfectly to the gazebos, especially the Mickey gazebo. 3 out of the 4 gazebos were utilized for meet and greets. For the best part, Winnie the Pooh and Friends finally came out wearing Christmas outfits, ending many years of Christmas absence. As we get closer to 2025, fans were hoping for announcements related to Hong Kong Disneyland's 20th anniversary. At this point, no official parade was showing after Flights of Fantasy Parade's retirement as a result of COVID-19. Rumor has it that there will be a new parade during the 20th anniversary, and fans were asking for details. And sometime after the Christmas event began, Hong Kong Disneyland finally revealed what is going to happen next.
Now Disney gets cheap?
Well, they did it again. Hong Kong Disneyland revealed that they are holding Duffy and Friends Play Days for a 3rd year. This led to further disappointment as fans were expecting announcements relating to the park's 20th anniversary, and as the date came closer in February 2025, the atrocious Duffy Floral was revealed a couple of days earlier. Other details of the event include Duffy merchandise still taking over nearly all of the Main Street shops, a new set of Duffy and Friends statues on Main Street, which I would admit does look better than the last one, and the Joy of Sharing show returning with new outfits for Duffy and Friends. I've already mentioned that I didn't like this show when it debuted in 2024. At that time, I could still forgive them because they were trying something new. But now they bring back the show with the exact same underwhelming story, with still no dialogue for the characters.
Oh, that's it! Treats! Treats would definitely make the picnic sweeter.
講到茶點 Cookie 就嚟到啦 ，Blue 都一齊嚟幫手添啊！
Cookie Ann made some delicious treats to share, and there were so many, all of them helped her carry them.
This is totally unacceptable. They thought guests would go watch the show, regardless of its quality, just to see Duffy and Friends. This is as lazy as Universal adding Minions to half-baked Despicable Me movies to attract kids that usually don't care about the film's quality. As a Disney theme park, I expect more than this. And just in case you think the Playdays couldn't get any worse, Duffy and Friends have even taken over the Hong Kong Disneyland Railroad, a classic opening day attraction, now ruined. Forgive me for being this harsh, but I've personally had a lot of fond memories riding these locomotives around the park since its early years. The railroad in this park is based on Walt Disney's love of trains and the first steam engines in the first Disneyland opening in 1955. Hong Kong Disneyland Railroad is one of the best rides to enjoy beautiful views in the park. Even after I grew up, I still ride this nostalgic attraction to simply relax during a busy day. But during this event, the trains and coaches are filled with that one mascot I hate, which is something that really hurts me. Alongside the railroad, the Duffy and Friends plush figures have taken over the Lilybell train model display, with a very cheap background at the Main Street Station. Both Main Street Station and Fantasyland Station are decorated with Duffy stickers and banners. Even the Mickey flag on top of the station since opening was removed and replaced it with a Duffy flag instead. Occasionally, the station is used for the show Adventure Together celebration moment, where Duffy and Friends ride the train to Main Street. Once again, Duffy and Friends continue to not talk in their shows and narration is required, making the show really underwhelming.
The first are excited to tell Shirley Bay all about the adventure. 不過首先，梗係有一張火車飛啦。
As we move on to the rest of the park, the omnibus was also decorated with Duffy and Friends. The takeover expands all the way through photo points based on the ride vehicles in Adventureland, Risley Gulch, and Mystic Point. Interestingly, these photo points don't seem to specify that they are made for Duffy, as there are no direct references to Duffy on the ride vehicles. So it kind of means that guests can place anything, including a Mickey plush, to take a photo. Because of that, this might be the only remaining thing I like in this event. This may also have to do with Duffy's origin story. Looking back at the show in Tokyo, Mickey once told Duffy about the characters and ports in Tokyo Disney Sea. Duffy exploring the areas in Hong Kong Disneyland seems to be an indirect reference to him exploring the areas in Disney Sea. Unfortunately, he is now doing it without Mickey. And listen, I don't want to hate Duffy, but the way Duffy wipes out nearly all Mickey appearances really bothers me. Think about it, what if Duffy and Friends Play Days can run with the Mickey Floral still intact? It would have made sense since Mickey and Minnie are involved in Duffy's origin story. Without the two mouses, there wouldn't be any Duffy and Friends today. Looking back in the Magic Assets show in 2018, Mickey and Minnie have played significant roles in introducing each member of the Duffy and Friends family. Since when and why has this franchise gone off the rails when it doesn't have to? Not to be mean to anyone, but I just think Mickey, Minnie, and other classic characters deserve some credit and should have part of the spotlight. If you are going to give Duffy and Friends new outfits, do the same for Mickey and Friends. On the other hand, I am so tired with their presence in this park. They are just literally everywhere, unlike Marvel only appearing in Tomorrowland. You know, I would have felt less tired if they invited other Disney friends along. One reason I hate Duffy and Friends Play Days is that the other characters get ignored. Imagine if Duffy and Friends invite not just Mickey, but also characters from stories like Toy Story, Brother Bear, and Stitch, etc. Stitch once held summer events in this park, inviting different Disney friends to join in the fun. This resulted in one of the best and most memorable seasonal events I've had to this date. But no, that's not happening anymore. All Duffy and Friends look for are generic things, like a bird and clouds with shapes not related to any Disney character, except Duffy. Unfortunately, the streak of disappointments continues. At some point before and during Duffy and Friends Play Days, a number of attractions are shut down due to operational adjustments. It turned out that some attractions closed just as an excuse for budget cuts, as no maintenance progress was seen in them. The worst part is, Orbitron and Tarzan's Treehouse currently have no reopening date as of the release of this video. This is a huge downgrade for a park that is already small and has fewer attractions to do. Not sure if this has to do with Duffy, but the fact it happens just in time for the event just makes it extra awful. Additionally, you might ask, can I at least see Mickey in the Daily Cavalcade despite it being short and outdated? Sadly, no, as Mickey and Friends Street Celebration is also suspended sometime when the Duffy event began. The parade route is now empty with no parade or cavalcade showing, similar to the holiday season. Even the International Women's Day Cavalcade did not return as a result, and the celebration was reduced to just female Marvel superheroes in Tomorrowland. For your information, Hong Kong Disneyland once held the cavalcade and the female Marvel heroes moment on International Women's Day for 2023 and 2024. Of course, it is worth noting that Hong Kong Disneyland has announced that a new parade will debut during the 20th anniversary, so it is possible that they are just rehearsing for the parade at the moment. So Mickey and the Wondrous Book is supposed to be the only attraction where you are guaranteed to see Mickey now. But even that attraction is closed due to operational adjustments from March 10th to 28th. Unlike Orbitron and the Treehouse, the operational adjustments this time was reportedly related to annual refurbishment and maintenance. Last but not least, Stellalou's Wonderful Wishes Ballet doesn't seem to be returning after the theater's refurbishment. It was the only good Duffy show in my opinion, so I still want to bring this up. Since the event is still ongoing, I will stop right here as we don't know what comes next. But all in all, I really hate this event and don't understand why they keep bringing it back.
Hong Kong Disneyland made history with record profits in fiscal 2024.
A few days after the Play Days event began, Hong Kong Disneyland revealed its financial results, reporting its first net profit since fiscal year 2014. Congratulations to Hong Kong Disneyland for finally getting out of the red. The net profit was at a whopping 838 million Hong Kong dollars, which is a record high number since opening. Theme park attendance was also at its all-time high at 7.7 million. There is no denying that Duffy and Friends were involved in turning things around. However, let's not forget that they are not the only revenue drivers in this park. World of Frozen opened during this fiscal year and has been a main reason guests visit the park since then. People also visit the park to see the new drone shows held for a limited time during the fiscal year. I bring these up not just to highlight some great attractions Hong Kong Disneyland has featured, but I also want to explain why the park shouldn't just focus on Duffy. On the other hand, the Duffy and Friends Play Days event is surprisingly gaining attention outside of Asia by looking at the comments on Disney Parks blogs' posts. Some people even suggested bringing them to Walt Disney World, particularly Epcot. Understandably, fans from the US want new things from other parks they cannot find in theirs, yet they have not seen a bigger picture. Through this video, I hope to give people a different perspective on Duffy and Friends and why I personally think they don't deserve that much attention. What makes me turn against them is their excessive promotion and advertising. They take over existing and beloved attractions, and for most of the time when they do so, in a rather low effort. Finally, some fans may point out that 2025 marks the 20th anniversary for not just Hong Kong Disneyland, but also Duffy and Friends. Yes, they can still celebrate Duffy's anniversary, but they don't have to take over the entire park to do so. Be considerate to those who don't like Duffy, and again, give us more of Mickey and Friends and other characters at the same time. Shanghai Disney Resort features new springtime outfits for Winnie the Pooh and Friends, Mickey and Friends, and Duffy and Friends for 3 years. They also have a show called Disney Color Fest, a street party, running for 3 years. The show includes a wide variety of characters, including Maylin Lee from Turning Red. Moreover, while Tokyo Disney Resort was the first to debut Duffy, they still have Mickey appearing in many different shows and attractions in both parks. Also, it is worth noting that Duffy and Friends were only in Disney Sea, the second theme park of the resort. They are not in the Castle Park, which is Tokyo Disneyland. Even with low budget or lack of space, Hong Kong Disneyland could have chosen not to flood the park with everything Duffy. It's not like people won't go if there is no Duffy Floral. At least I'm not seeing a decline in their popularity right now. Speaking of which, the Disneyland Resort in California, the very first Disneyland, is celebrating its 70th anniversary this year, and one of their new offerings is the Celebrate Happy Cavalcade, which features Duffy and Shelly May. While this is not Hong Kong Disneyland, I am still very disappointed. They replaced the Magic Happens daytime parade with this small cavalcade with fewer characters, and 2 of these characters just so happened to be my least favorite. Not to be mean, but Disney has a lot of characters to choose from, and I definitely expect more than just Duffy and Friends. The same goes for Hong Kong Disneyland. Wouldn't adding more characters to the play days capture even more people's attention? Hong Kong Disneyland should really think about all of this. In conclusion, Duffy originally started as an innocent theme park exclusive character to go alongside Mickey Mouse. The Disney Bear served as a decent addition to Hong Kong Disneyland initially. However, as his popularity grew, the park decided to shift focus towards Duffy and Friends in an excessive way. His franchise is now used as a lazy cash grab to increase sales and revenue. And yes, this might work for Hong Kong Disneyland, but I am not too fond of it. No offense to Duffy fans, but it seems that the majority of them don't really care about the quality of their attractions. It's like they would go by or see anything with a Duffy face slapped onto it. As a result, many things that were present since the park opened have been changed. I am not completely against these changes, but most of them seem to ruin the special Disney feeling you'll typically get in a Disney park. It is painful to see their overwhelming success leading to many Disney classics overlooked, including Mickey Mouse. I really don't mean to spoil anything, but I am so tired seeing so many Duffy poses each day. I just hope to see a little more variety when it comes to Disney. Hong Kong Disneyland's 20th anniversary is around the corner. Although the new parade promises to feature new characters and more classics, I am personally still not optimistic. It is clear that the park is still relying on Duffy and Friends in this event, and will probably continue doing so afterwards. I really feel sorry for all the performers who have taken part in any of the Duffy shows. They really tried their best to pull off a great performance, but the park just cannot stop the fatigue that keeps getting worse. Duffy was originally meant to be the bear of happiness and luck. Sadly for me, I just cannot feel that happiness anymore, particularly after the play days. In my opinion, Hong Kong Disneyland has lost much of its charm after Duffy and Friends' takeover. And that, folks, is the reason why I hate Duffy and Friends. Hello everyone, if you made it far enough to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like it and subscribe to this channel. Also don't forget to check out the channel's Instagram.